What in the Matrix hell?
Welcome to the space.
I guess what I want to talk about is the fact that you're a director that's worked with a lot of amazing ensemble casts, but the scope of this movie is it's kind of mind-blowing. Obviously, we've got LeBron and his family, the Looney Tunes, but then there's all these many, many worlds of Warner Brothers characters. So as the director, how did it feel to play in this massive sandbox?
It was pretty intimidating at first because I hadn't had this experience, and kind of shied away from movies, of this size, just because I was like, I don't know anything about that, and didn't really have a great interest in it. I always felt like those were movies that were you had to have a certain storytelling brain to do it. You know what I mean? And I always felt like sometimes, if it gets so big, you don't get to be the director creatively. You get to be a traffic cop, because there's so many, different, cooks in the kitchen. But once I understood it, once I got into, got thrown into the mix, it was and had such great partners, from the producing team to ILM to WAG, Warner Animation Group. It just, became like, oh, these are just all storytelling tools for me at my disposal. And so because I've had the 20-year experience that I've had, I was able to, bring my expertise to the table and use them as people that can help me realize the vision.
So in terms of, just balancing all these different properties, what did it feel like there was a responsibility to show some of them in certain ways, especially when we're diving into some of these other worlds?
You try to present them as they are, and then just put a little twist on it. You know what I'm saying? Whenever you go into when you're gathering the tunes up, and trying to build a team together where they are scattered across the serververse, you take footage from those movies and you insert your characters, and hopefully it's fun and it's funny, and quick, because we want to let's get on the ride as soon as possible and get to the game. So it wasn't so much a responsibility, but more like just try to pay homage to that movie, and also make something fun and funny for the audience.
Right, and the Looney Tunes are kind of historically able to be inserted into anything and make it their own. So,
I love the Looney Tunes. I grew up watching Saturday morning cartoons, and that's my my memory of them is that and having a bowl of cereal and watching that until get out of the house.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned, getting to the game. And I think from the minute we first saw the trailer, that has been this kind of mind-blowing experience of obviously what's going on the court, but then just this audience of characters too. On one end, I'm curious what it's like kind of directing those folks on the sidelines. You've got, people dressed like White Walkers and people dressed like, it's just like a wild thing to see. How was it kind of reining all those folks in?
I tell you what, the good thing about it is they were all in character, right? They all loved being those characters they were. And, it was all about them being fans of the game, right? And particularly of the Goon Squad. So, cheer for your team is basically what it is, in character. And sometimes, they went a little too far in some places where they got distracted. It was like, okay, please stop doing that. The action is here, not back there. But look, they had great enthusiasm. And these folks had to get in hair and makeup from 3 o'clock in the morning, and they'd be with us all day. So kudos to the background talent, because these folks were here, to really be a part of the movie, and they were incredible.
Again, so many properties, especially in that audience scene. Is there one that you were particularly excited about or tickled by or surprised that made it into this movie? There's so many fun things to see in there.
What we had the live action portion of it. The fun part was able to pepper in all the other characters like King Kong and Iron and the Flintstones and the Jetsons and the Scooby-Doo crew and Captain Caveman and those kind of Hanna-Barbera characters. That was a lot of fun to play as well. Because you're building a world, And that was what's so incredible about working in this sandbox on this platform, and with a company as dynamic and amazing as ILM. So you don't even realize when you're shooting what it's going to be. You have somewhat of an imagination of like what it could be, but then like they show you what else that that they're building, and it's like, wow, like this is like incredible. Every time we did the visual effects review, I was amazed by what I but at the same time it was like, okay, well, how do we improve upon it? How do we make it better?
Now, we won't spoil anything for any of the audience, but there is one very specific cameo I need to ask you about. It was my favorite gag of the whole movie, Michael B. Jordan. I loved that moment. Could you tell me about how that came together? Was that as it was scripted? How did we get him involved?
I don't know who you're talking about, but in what you're saying is, yes, it's a great gag in the movie, only very unique to Space Jam, that only we could have in our movie and have the payoff that it does. It was kind of a favor from a relationship with LeBron and from Ryan Coogler. And we just said, hey, like this would be a great thing. I wasn't sure who was going to make the movie. I didn't know what kind of impact it was going to have. But once we put it in front of an audience, everyone was, oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
You got to win this game.
Let's end this.
Got you, Bron. And get our son back.
Classic.
Welcome to the Space Jam.